certified nonviolent communication trainer. I live in Vancouver, in the west end of Vancouver, as you might have heard the horns and the clapping in the west end here just a moment ago, in celebration of all the frontline workers. What else would I want to say? I've been studying nonviolent communication for about, oh gosh, 12, 13 years, I suppose, for myself, and I've been teaching it for 7 or 8 years. And this is, I've moved away from my work in the corporate world to do this full time, and I love it. So it's a real honor to be here and sharing it with you. In in-person workshops, I often do a land acknowledgement, and acknowledging the unceded territories that I often teach on, and the unceded territories that I live on, the Musqueam and the Tsleil-Waututh and the Snohomish peoples. And I know that this is an accumulation of people from all over. I heard someone say Prince George and someone say the interior. And so I just want to acknowledge all the lands of the ancestral people, Indigenous people of these lands, and their long stewardship of these particular lands. And what that means to me is how deeply connected those communities were. They were smaller communities, and they were connected to each other in ways, and connected to the land in ways that are really precious to me. And so in this exceptional time that we are all collectively on the planet Earth, in some way, most of the population of the planet has been affected by the current pandemic, and we're finding new ways to be in connection. And so I'm certain many of you have spent many hours possibly in the past few weeks on Zoom and other virtual platforms. And so it's exciting for me to be able to bring this to you in this medium, because it allows us to connect over space and even over time, because we're going to record this and people will get to watch it later. And so being able to share this particular way of communicating and connecting. And in this time, my experience has been that when stress levels are high, or anxiety or fear is high, the need for slowing down and coming into presence, and the need for compassionate skills of compassion and empathy go up. We need more capacity to hear each other and to have patience and gentleness and kindness with each other. And so I'm really excited to share nonviolent communication with you, because the essence of nonviolent communication to me is very much cultivating capacity for empathy and compassion, and a quality of connection that really allows us to be seen. I also want to acknowledge Marshall Rosenberg as the man who created this particular form of communicating. Certainly he is not the father of nonviolence. I mean, there's been nonviolent movements around the world for all of time, and certainly hundreds of years. And certainly in the 60s, when he was doing his particular work of working in psychology and really wanting to understand why people treated each other the way that they did, in the racial violence that he experienced in Detroit in the 40s, riots there with lots of deaths, and his psychology education, and as a young man in the 60s, and really wanting to know what drove human interaction. And so in the era of the 60s and the movements of nonviolence, and that's how what he developed got coined as nonviolent communication. These days, we often talk about it as compassionate communication. It's, for me, it feels like a more modern term. So just a little bit of acknowledgements about how we might have come to this place with this particular practice and understanding. We've covered, you can see I'm glancing down at notes. I want to make sure I share with you everything I intended. We covered the Zoom logistics. And so in our time together, we're here between 7 and 8:30 p.m. And in this time, I will do my best to make this interactive. It's a long time to sit in front of a computer and just take in information. And so I will, I'm going to drag my partner in for moments, because one of the most powerful ways to learn nonviolent communication is to experience it. And so we're going to demonstrate some conversations for you. And we'll get, well, I believe we will attempt breakout rooms, which is an amazing feature in Zoom where we get to go into small rooms. And it allows you to have conversations amongst yourselves and to have a sense of being heard and seen and connected and valued. So I've never done breakout rooms with nearly 70 people. So that in itself will be an experience, and just requesting patience as we navigate all these different ways technology is happening for us. I will definitely make room for Q&A at the end. We'll have all kinds of time for Q&A, I'm guessing, even like the last 20 minutes. And so feel free to type questions as they arise to Jacob, and we'll track those. And feel free to note them down, and you can ask them later. We'll unmute some folks, and you can actually ask your questions, and we can have some dialogue around what you're curious about. And then midway through, we'll also make space after our demonstration for some Q&A. This is often a space where I want to hear your voices. And so me doing the monologue presentation is a new space for me. So I am going to slide into the good stuff. And I actually have a screen share that I'm going to do, because I know everyone learns a little bit differently. And if I just say the words of what I feel the essence of nonviolent communication to be, they may or may not land for everyone in the same way. So I am going to pause, because I'm not on my own computer, and I'm noticing I'm not seeing the windows that I would like. So we'll just have a little technology moment as I find the right window. Here we go. Awesome. Yes. So for me, the essence of nonviolent communication, the gifts of nonviolent communication, are really simple, actually. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to all of this. I mean, there's a lot to communication. There's a lot to humans. We're complicated creatures. And communication between humans can be really complex at times. And some of the essences for nonviolent communication to me is the way that it allows me to connect deeply with myself, with whatever is arising in the moment. And when I've cultivated the skills of consciousness, the skills and the consciousness of nonviolent communication, I'm able to do that with a sense of warmth and curiosity, a sense of self-compassion. And I actually am able to do that free of judgments, of shoulds and should nots. I should not feel that. I should not think that. I should not. I should. Oh, I should. All of the ways in which we're told how to be that don't allow our authentic selves to come out. And so one of the things nonviolent communication does for me is it creates a space of self-connection to really understand what's happening for me. That's my internal world. The second thing that it does for me that is, to me, transformative is I get to see the outer world beyond the judgments and assessments and assumptions that we can make in our everyday life. I get to see beyond those to what is truly essential to the human beings, what's truly important to whoever is around me that I'm interacting with. What is underneath their actions or their words, what's really important to them. I can move past the judgments and past the assumptions and past the assessments of what's happening, the right and wrong thinking, those sorts of things. I want to move from, instead of it being right and wrong or black and white, to understanding motivation and understanding needs, understanding the human values that underlie what happens. And nonviolent communication has helped cultivate the skills of empathy and empathic listening. And so empathy for me, I love the image of coming alongside someone. So when we're in conflict with someone, we're at odds, we're in opposition. And when I want to change my experience of connection from one of conflict to one of empathy or compassion, I'm going to do my best to come alongside them and take their perspective and set aside for a moment my own perspective to really understand what's happening for them. And I want to guess at what their experience is. I want to guess at what their feelings and needs are in a moment. So empathy in the nonviolent communication model is guessing at people's feelings and needs. And the guessing piece is actually really important. I don't know about you, but I don't like to be told how I'm feeling. It's actually, like, I can experience that as quite invalidating. And so by someone guessing at what I'm feeling there, I see that as a bid for connection. And it gives me the space to still have my experience without being imposed upon. And so empathy for me is coming alongside and guessing and being with someone in their experience. I mentioned this piece in the first gift of connecting to what arises in us is self-connection. So that for me is an amazing skill that nonviolent communication can cultivate. And it's really understanding my own emotions, my own thoughts, and what my emotions and my thoughts point to, which are needs. And I'll say a little bit more about needs in a minute. And one of the third skill that nonviolent communication really helps us cultivate is expression, our own expression of our truth. Self-expression or honest expression. And we say honest expression, but sometimes, I don't know about you, but I can experience people's expression is painful sometimes. People can be honestly expressing, and it can be in ways that it's hard to hear and it's painful to hear. And so what nonviolent communication does, it gives me a literal model of how to express myself in ways that are more likely to create connection. They're more likely to speak from my own vulnerability, from my own experience, without the judgments and projections, and make room for other people's experiences to be different than mine, and make room for curiosity about what other people's experiences are. So these are some of the essences of nonviolent communication that I'm really hoping that you will have an experience of this evening. I'm going to stop that share. And let's see. Yeah, there's a couple things I want to say about needs. I do a lot of workshops with people that are just new into nonviolent communication, and sometimes even the word needs carries interpretations that don't align with my experience of it in nonviolent communication. So when I say needs, what I mean are the fundamental human values that underlie kind of everything that we do. So there's a principle that I like to share in my fundamentals course, is that the existence of needs as underlying human values, that there are things, that qualities of being that are universal to all human beings. And that some of the most basic ones are the need to be understood, the need for acceptance and acknowledgement, the need for gentleness or compassion. There's lots of them, and there's a whole list. And I might actually even try to share it in our chat. I've never shared a file, but I might try to do that. Because there's a whole list that helps us articulate the language of needs so that we can have a better sense of connection of what's important to us underneath. The second principle that I like to share, so there's these universal values, these universal needs that underlie the human experience. And this is the piece that I think is really a click for me, is that everything that we do is an attempt to meet a need. And so it could be a conscious strategy, a conscious attempt, or an unconscious attempt. And it could be effective or ineffective. But underneath everything that I do, I'm attempting to meet a need. And when we can reach to each other from that place, for me, it creates a real place of curiosity and places an opening for compassion. So instead of going to judgment or assessment about someone else's behavior that we're really not enjoying, we can notice the behavior and possibly get curious about what need are they attempting to meet in that behavior. That if I understood that, I could relate on that level. Maybe the need is for integrity, or the need is for, I really like integrity. Choice is also another really important need that I have in my life. And so if I can connect to their need for choice underneath that, or freedom underneath that, and in these days of constriction, of social distancing and physical distancing, sometimes I get anxious because my need for freedom is being impinged upon in some ways. And there's also needs for social connection. There's my other needs, the needs that are met for social distancing is social responsibility and deep care for other people, and wanting the well-being of people in my neighborhood and people in my life and my community. And so I do the thing that's being asked of me, but sometimes there's needs that are unmet in that, and they feel like tension. They feel like tension and anxiety sometimes. And so that's also happening. And when we experience our needs as being met, we often have these expansive, light, joyful feelings. Ah, that's wonderful. And when we experience our needs not being met, or not being met fully, or not, sometimes we just don't even understand them. We don't connect to what that really is for us. Those feelings sometimes can be dense and heavier, and kind of the less pleasant feelings to experience. But all of those feelings just point us to what's important to us. So if I'm feeling tense about something, I could wonder about what's going on inside me that makes me feel tense? What story am I telling myself? What experience am I having? And what need do I have that maybe isn't being fully met in that moment? That when I connect to what the need is, I can then think of different strategies. The strategy that's happening isn't meeting my need. But if I can connect to what the underlying need is, the need for freedom or for choice, then maybe I can find other ways, other strategies to get that need met. So this is some of like the orientation to some of the consciousness of nonviolent communication. It's definitely there's a 4-part model of nonviolent communication that you can read about in Marshall's book. Observation, what exactly happened, feeling, how I felt when that thing happened, need, what was I needing in that moment that was either met or unmet, and then request. And sometimes we get to a request, we want things to be different in the world. So there's a really clear 4-part model for nonviolent communication. But for me, it's also quite a bit more than that. It's this consciousness of understanding the underlying human spirit in people. And it's this consciousness of being in inquiry. And I attempt to do this in every moment. What can I do right now to create more connection? What can I do right now to create more connection? Sometimes it's empathy, and sometimes it's something different. There's lots of ways we can be with each other that create connection. My personal experience is when there's increased tension, or there's increased tenderness, so someone's feeling really vulnerable, or there's increased tension, there's sort of a sense of conflict or resistance or something like that, empathy is often a really helpful place to start. So starting with what's underneath the tension, what is the experience that person is having, what feelings and needs are they having, or underneath the tenderness, holding them with care and empathy, really making room for whatever that experience is to be known and understood, can be really connecting. And so there's lots of ways we respond to things in the world, and lots of ways that aren't empathy. And I've had lots of experiences, and I'm guessing maybe some of you have, of sharing either tension or tenderness and not being received, or not being understood, or actually having someone respond in a way that actually feels kind of invalidating, like what I said just didn't really matter so much, or even worse, conflictual. So those are our non-empathy responses, kind of giving advice or trying to fix, or telling stories that, we're hoping will make the person feel better. And some of those are sometimes helpful. Sometimes I really want advice, but maybe after I've received a little bit of understanding about what my experience is, a little bit of empathy, I can feel relaxed, a little bit more relaxed and understood, and a little bit more calm, and then advice maybe is exactly the thing I want. So, yeah. So I'm hoping this is giving you a sense of what can be possible with nonviolent communication. The one more piece about the word needs, sometimes people resist the word needs because we have this association of neediness, and that we shouldn't have needs. And there's sort of labels and judgments around the word needs. But if we, in the nonviolent communication kind of understanding, hold it as just what's important to the person underneath, then we can move away from the label of neediness. And we could even maybe even transform neediness to someone just needing more than I can offer in this moment, needing more understanding or more time or more connection than I have the capacity for right now. And I like label them as needy. But if I move away from the labeling and just get curious, their need is for something, connection, and maybe my need is for space. And so we just have differing needs. And then how do we work with that? How do we find our way to understanding each other? And if we connect on that underlying needs level versus the strategy of person wants to talk and I just want to get away, we can connect to their need to be understood and my need for space, well, then we can maybe find a strategy that I could listen for 5 minutes, or I could listen in an hour after I've had some space. Like we can get creative and find strategies that would actually meet both of our needs, which for me, that's the sweet spot of NVC, is being able to connect to the underlying importance of whatever's happening, and then finding ways through tension to places of connection. Okay, I would love to bring you into an experience of nonviolent communication. So I'm going to ask my partner Trevor to come play with me. Hey, Trev. So one of the things that's most powerful that I love to do in workshops is demonstrations. And sometimes on Zoom, I just do them. Hi, honey. It's my partner, Trevor.
Everybody.
Sometimes when I'm facilitating by myself, I do the multiple personality. I actually try to like do empathy back and forth by myself. But he's here and he's willing to
Be the guinea pig.
Be the guinea pig. Be my partner, my Vanna White. And so we're going to demonstrate a conversation in 2 different ways. We're going to demonstrate it in the way that if we're not connected to needs and we're not connected to empathy, how conversations might go. We're going to do that briefly. And then we're going to try it again using a bit of the skills that we've talked about of empathic listening, of self-connection, and of honest expression. Yeah. And I invite you to notice, just in this moment as a bit of a baseline, notice how you are in this moment. Notice how you are in this moment. Just check in with your body. Just check in with any body sensations you notice. And this is just setting a baseline of curiosity about your own experience. It's kind of the beginning stages of self-connection. And just notice what body sensations you might be feeling, or what, and what emotions you might be feeling. Just as a little bit of a check-in with yourself. We're going to do it again after this demonstration. Hi, sweetheart.
Okay. So I just wanted to check in with you about Friday and what time you want to leave.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I really don't think we should go. Yeah, I think it's a terrible idea. I think with all of this stuff going on, there's no way we can go visit your parents at Easter this weekend.
Why are you telling me that this now? We're leaving in 2 days. I've been looking forward to seeing them. We haven't seen them in like months. I think it was Thanksgiving we saw them last.
Yeah, and there's so much going on. I really don't feel like it's responsible to go visit them right now. They're like in their 80s. It's just not. I just really don't think.
But we've been really responsible. We've been in isolation. There's nothing. I've been talking to them about this. It's fine.
No, I was listening to the news this morning, and all of this stuff, it just really makes me anxious, and I just don't think we should go. It's just not worth it. You know, we're gonna drive up there, and who knows? Like, I don't want to take the virus into your parents' house and have them be sick. They're 80 years old. They're like the most vulnerable population right now.
Yes, but both of us have taken care of each other. This is important to me. I haven't seen. We don't
know. You've been to the grocery store. We've been, doing our
mask.
errands.
I've been wearing the gloves. You can't just 2 days before we're supposed to go say we're not going. We haven't been there in 6 months.
All the time.
Fine, I'll go. And don't come. I'm not.
No, that doesn't work.
Look, you're way more cautious than me. You're
for
worried
good
about
reason.
this.
This is scary. People are actually dying.
It's overkill.
It's not overkill, honey. Come on, be reasonable.
Be reasonable.
All right, we're going to pause. We're going to pause the demonstration. I'm hoping there are threads in there that you can be like, oh gosh, I sort of have at least witnessed that kind of conversation go somewhere. And in this moment, check in with your being. Check in with your body, in particular, your head and your face and your neck, your chest and your belly, and just notice, without needing to change anything, what might have shifted. I'm noticing my hands are a little clammy. I have tension in my right shoulder, and I have like tension in my solar plexus. Like, I don't think I'm breathing very much. Yeah.
I've got tension in my face. I can really feel it from my my forehead right down to my my chin, and I've noticed myself grinding my teeth a little bit. And I like a buzz in my chest, buzz in the center of my chest, buzzing.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I feel this like warp change kind of energy. I don't know what that is. It's a body sensation.
It's a body sensation. So there's a whole other like body of knowledge that I am excited to share, and maybe I'll just share a little tidbit. I'm tracking time. I've shared a little bit of a tidbit right now. It's the interpersonal neurobiology that Jacob mentioned in my intro. I've studied it with a trainer from Portland, and it's what's happening in our bodies, in our physiology as we're in relationship with another person. And there's a part of it, I'm sure people are familiar with this, there's a part of our limbic system, but a part of our nervous system that's monitoring for our safety. It's a little bit in the back of our brain here, and it's our alarm system. And it's monitoring, I love this, 12 to 100 times a second. Am I safe? Do I matter? 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 And it's happening right now in both of us. It's happening in all of you. And it's the way that we ensure our physical safety back in the days of saber-toothed tigers. Am I safe? Is this a safe trail to be on? Is this a safe forest to be in? Do I hear things that make me feel alarmed? I'm just noticing there's a car outside. I'm going to close the window. And so that's it's a huge part of our safety and our survival mechanism. And also the do I matter? We're incredibly relational creatures, and our survival is quite literally connected to our ability for social integration. So if I get thrown out by my tribe, by my village, then I might not survive. And so there's this do I matter part is really part of it, an essential part of our survival. And so when we get into these kinds of conversations, the reason I was feeling tension in my solar plexus and heat and the sense of is because our nervous systems are activated. And when our nervous systems are activated, it's a little bit trickier to do empathy because parts of our brain actually aren't as online and connected as when we're in a calm, relaxed place. And so I'm going to invite us and maybe all of you to take a couple breaths. That's one way we can tell our body and we can tell our nervous system we're safe. So let's just take 3 breaths. We know that when we breathe with a sigh and an exhale, it actually helps us calm our nervous system. It helps vibrate the vagus nerve, part of that alarm system. We'll do it a couple more times. And wiggling helps to loosen up. Our bodies get rigid and tight. We get into the flight, fight, freeze, and we go into protection. And so moving our bodies, movement is really helpful for loosening our bodies and our minds. They're all connected, our minds and our judgments and how rigid we might get about something. So checking in a little bit of how do you feel now?
The breathing helps. Yeah, just noticed if I was at a 6 out of 10, I'm at like a 3, 2 possibly. Just feel relaxed, a little more relaxed.
Thanks. Yeah. So just checking in for yourself too. What shifted just in listening to me talk and noticing your breath in your body? So we're going to do a do-over because this is what you can do when you're You can like time out. I want to do a do-over. Let's do this differently. And so I'm going to use some of the skills that I mentioned earlier on, empathic listening, which is part of that is content reflection. So I'm going to mirror back some of what he says. When you notice tension and tenderness, that's the time to use these skills. So I might mirror back. I might guess at his feelings and needs. I'm going to do self-empathy, and I might pause our conversation and just do a little bit of self-empathy aloud for you, so you can hear what it sounds like. And then I'm going to try some honest expression, which is connected to my own needs and what's alive for me, if he's willing to hear me. He'll be more willing after he receives some empathy, likely. All right, so let's do it again.
All right, so Jen, I just wanted to check in with you about leaving time on Friday for dads.
I feel really apprehensive when I hear you say that, because I have some really serious concerns about going.
Right.
Yeah.
What are your concerns?
So it doesn't feel wise at all to go. It feels really, I feel apprehensive. Just give me a second. Yeah, with all of the stuff that's going on and all of this virus and everything feels so uncertain and like constantly changing, it just doesn't feel wise to go.
I really want to go.
Yeah.
We've been planning this for a long time. I haven't seen Dad since Thanksgiving, I think.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me this now?
Yeah.
I'm started to pack and I'm like ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing maybe it feels confusing or a little frustrating.
It doesn't make sense. You're overreacting to this. Like, there's a lot of people overreacting to this.
Mm-hmm.
We've been good. We've been isolating. I've been in conversation with them. They said they're comfortable with this coming.
Yeah, so you feel like we've been doing all the right, responsible things.
Yeah.
We've been isolating.
Yes.
I hear that you're really excited to go.
Yes.
Yeah. Really missing him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah.
And who knows? You're right. I mean, the uncertainty of things, and he is 81 years old, and heaven forbid something happens, I definitely want to make sure we get some time with him.
Yeah. So it's really important for you to connect with him and spend quality time with him.
Yeah.
I also hear the care that you've had around like being responsible. You've been in conversation with them, you feel like you're doing your due diligence to protect them and to be safe. Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel a bit shocked that you're bringing it up today.
Yeah.
Like we're leaving in 2 days for this week-long trip that we've been talking about forever, and it's like you're springing it up.
Right. It feels kind of surprising.
Totally.
And frustrating.
Like, why didn't you say something earlier?
Yeah, because I and how I know you, I'm guessing you really enjoy like the predictability of like plans not changing at the last minute.
Yeah, especially 2 days before.
Yeah, it was like really quick turnaround to be changing.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah, you've really been anticipating this trip. Yeah. Is there more you want me to know?
I just really miss him. I feel I'm anxious about all this too. I'm trying to keep my wits about me, and right now, like I've been cut off from so many people and friends. It's like that I have to stay close to family.
Yeah. Like how incredibly important the family connection is right now. Yeah, that's really super important to you.
Yep. Thank you.
I'm just going to do a little bit of pause, Trevor, for a second. I'm going to do a little bit of verbal self-empathy in this moment because I'm noticing tenderness, legit tenderness coming up for me. And so when I check in with my body, there's a little like vibration in my throat and a little tension in my chest. And I feel sadness. I feel grief. I feel some sort of sense of worry. That family is really important to me too. And the idea of putting them at risk just makes me really frightened. So I'm not saying this to Trevor. This is just my own internal process. And gosh, what I'm really wanting is for him to understand how important it is for me, like that how much like my sense of conservatism comes from deep, deep care. Yeah, when I can connect to that inside myself, oh yeah, actually that comes from like really deep care for his parents and for family and just for like overall well-being. Yeah. So when I can have a moment, and maybe this is, I've been doing this a long time, and so I'm able to drop into this sense of self-empathy in the moment a little more easily than I used to be able to. And sometimes it takes a bit of space. So if this conversation was going like the first version, I might have asked for a pause and be like, I'm just going to self-connect and see what's really important to me here and go away and come back and then be able to express myself more calmly instead of being in that conversation that just escalates tension. I might use a bit of a sneaky trick and just say, this is super important to me and I'm going to use the washroom. I'll be right back. And literally go to the bathroom and do some self-connection and then come back in a more calm state, because the most important thing for me is to, what can I do here to create more connection? And so if I'm in a sense of alarm, or if my sense of that my strategy is right is taking me over, I want to make sure that I'm connected to my needs or what's underneath my strategy for I'm right and we need to not go. Because when I'm in that right wrong place, I'm not going to create as much connection as I'd like. So I want to shift that and self-connect so that I can like be able to express to him what's important to me, not from an alarmed place, but from a calm place, as calm as I can. And calm doesn't mean quiet. I don't know if anyone knows that. Calm doesn't mean like I can't have, calm can also be passionate and really clear, but it just means I'm not in alarm, speaking from fear or grief or something like that. Something that maybe would create more tension between us. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. So this is a little bit of my own process. I do this self-empathy process, self-connection process, so that I can communicate more clearly. Yeah, so I really hear what's important to you is connection with your dad and time with him, because he's 81 and you've really taken the time to be diligent about safety and protection and care, and you've been in communication with him and you've been feeling you're doing all the right things and that you're really looking forward to this trip.
Yeah, and I feel scared. I feel scared underneath it all. I do feel scared. I'm worried.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to make sure some time with him.
Because he's going to pass away at some point, whether it's this or something else, and you want to make sure you get it.
Hopefully a little
later. Later, much later. Yeah, yeah. Are you willing to hear a little bit about what's up for me about the concern about going? You have some space?
Sure.
Yeah. So when I heard the news this morning from the BC government just about the changes that are going on, it just really I just feel a little panicky, I guess. And I just have such love for your parents. And I really want to protect them in absolutely every way possible. I guess my willingness to risk is really low because of the amount of care and love I have for them. And for me, I'm okay with a little bit of sacrifice of maybe not seeing them this Easter and maybe seeing them at Thanksgiving, if it means that I can contribute to a sense of safety and security for them. So like the idea of going and being in their home and like cooking meals together, it all just kind of feels like too much at this time that we're really supposed to be taking space from each other. And so that just all feels like too much togetherness for me. It introduces too much uncertainty and risk to me. So I'm really, really wanting to take precautions and be, not that my precautions are coming from a place of love.
I want the same thing. I want them to be safe. I think we might just have different strategies about that, but I can totally support
Yeah.
desire for thank you for taking care of my parents. Like I hear that.
Yeah. I wonder if there's somewhere between not going and going and staying with them that would kind of address some of my concerns and also make room for you to actually spend time with them.
So is it like being in the home and cooking?
Yeah, like being in the home and cooking, like, yeah, sharing bathrooms and like just all of that, like really intimate, like domestic stuff just feels like too much to me. Yeah. Being in enclosed spaces with them feels unwise. Yeah.
I mean, we could. The weather's turning nice, and we suppose we could. There's a hotel just up from their place. I can't remember the name of it, but it's nice. It's got a nice view and stuff. I mean, it's not too far. We could go for walks. I mean, I think the weather's supposed to be pretty decent, so I suppose we could do that.
Yeah, I guess if we could honor the sort of the physical distancing that we've been doing with everyone, like
I am gonna hug him.
Oh.
I'll wrap myself up in a coat or whatever, but I just need to give my dad a hug.
Yeah. What if we agreed to like meet them outdoors and
Yeah,
have
that's what I'm
picnics in the
suggesting.
park?
Maybe, yeah.
Go for a hike.
Well, they got their bikes.
Yeah.
We can take our bikes up and just. I'd rather be outdoors anyways in the nice weather. So.
All right. Yeah, I think that would work for me.
Yeah, I just really need to see it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So there's an entirely different conversation.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm really curious, and here is where I would love to make a bit of room to hear some of your voices about what did you notice that was happening differently. And I think the easiest way to do that, because I would love to hear what you noticed. And actually, even before that, I would love for you to pause for a moment and check in with what's happening in your being now as you witness this different example. I notice I have a little bit of tension, but mostly warmth in my chest, and that tension in my solar plexus is gone. Yeah, so just noticing what's happening in your body as you witness a different quality of relating. And I think what I would love to invite is if people could manage to find one of the responses, be it the yes, the no, or the thumbs up, any of those responses. And if you just hit one of those responses, if you have something you'd like to share about what did you notice, and then we will unmute you and you can share what you've noticed. And I would love to hear some voices. I've been talking for like 45 minutes now. All right, I can do the unmuting, Jacob. I believe I have the power. So Anne, I'm gonna unmute you. I'm gonna try to unmute you.
Hi.
Hi, what did you
Hi,
notice,
Jenna.
Anne?
I noticed in this second conversation, it seems like you both connected with the same need, kind of coming back to your earlier discussion of care and love for your partner's parents. So it seems like there was this connection and then followed understanding from both of where you sat with this situation.
Wonderful, thank you. So when we got sort of beneath things, we really actually connected to the same set of needs.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thanks, Anne. And I see a note and I'll just read it in the chat because it came to me directly, is that I know Gwyneth noticed there was so much more listening the second time around. Yes, this is an important key, that I actually set aside all of my opinion and really just made room to listen to him first, and then checked in with him. Offered some consent, checked in if he was able to hear me. I try to speak my truth into places where it's possible to be heard. Yeah. Anybody else? What else did you notice? You could type it in the chat, or you could Hit one of those responses and I'll unmute you. Yeah, Samantha noticed there was more breathing space. There was less kind of like escalating, talking over, you know, amplification. So slowing things down, being willing to have moments of silence. It's actually okay. It gives us room. It gives us space. Yeah. Thanks, Samantha. Anybody else? What did you notice? So I'm hoping what somebody would have noticed is a little bit, I did a little bit of reflective listening, empathic listening, which involves content reflection. So I mirrored back to him what I heard him say. I mirrored back some of his feelings. I mirrored back the needs that he identified and the needs that I also offered up as guesses. So saying those things back is really helps the first person, helped him have the experience of being heard. It's not enough to go, I heard you, I understand. But if you actually demonstrate you understand by saying back what was important to that person, they're going to have the experience of being understood. And that is a really different experience than someone telling you they understand. And I have a couple more. From Anne, she said she could feel that both were letting go a little of the positions. Each time you could feel more openness and willingness to see the other's position. Empathy is really amazing for bringing people back into emotional regulation, so de-escalating tension. And when we're not tense, we're way more willing to hear each other. And I see that Michelle Marson put up her hand, and I'll definitely get, let's see if I can get there. I didn't see that. If you want to unmute her, oh, you know what? It's not popping to the top for me. Jacob, if you want to unmute people, that would be helpful. Because I thought they would pop to the top for me. I'm not seeing everyone's hands.
I've unmuted myself and I don't know if you can hear.
Awesome. I can hear you.
Okay, very good. I did notice that you never use, well, in a mean way, you never use the word you. Always, you never, you're selfish, you know, like you were never attacking your partner. And you kept some sentences very neutral. And I've actually jotted down some of I have some reservations about something. It doesn't feel, I don't feel. So you spoke a lot on, with I mean, they're very basic things, but I find that we have to remind ourselves. And in the heat of the moment, sometimes you just don't remember.
It'd be tricky. Yeah, I sometimes challenge people to have these conversations without using the word you. Just try it on. Only reference yourself and your own experience. It's amazing. It's amazingly transformative to create space between what's mine and what's theirs. Yeah, and it starts to peel back some of the projections that we have and the labelings and judgments. You are this, you are that. Those rarely can create more connection. And what I really want most is, how can I create more connection? Thanks for the observations. Yeah. I'm going to read one or two more from the list here, and then we'll hear another person. Speaking from the heart from Teresa, not pummeling with fear. Yeah. And Sasha says, you could talk about the technique you used to open the conversation. Oh, could I talk about the technique that I used to open the conversation with him? Yes, I absolutely can do that. I noticed it was slightly different and allowed the conversation to start better, but it helped to clarify. I love that question. Thanks, Sasha. Yeah, I really love consent. I don't know if anyone's done consent work in sexuality, but it's all about touch and consent. Well, you know what? Consent applies to conversations too. Consent and timing is huge for mitigating conflict. And so I started the conversation with, I have some reservations about, I'm trying to think exactly how I started it. We'll rewind the recording. I know there was a point at which I asked him if there was more he would like me to understand. So I'm wanting to like make sure I've like made full of room for him to be understood. And when I had the sense that he had expressed and he felt very understood, that was his experience, he felt understood, then I asked, do you have room to hear some of my concerns? So instead of just jumping in with my own perspective, which sometimes can feel invalidating on the heels of someone else being heard, I asked, do you have room to hear mine? And then he got to have choice. He could have said, no, I'm still too upset. And then maybe we would have found another time to talk about it. But consent is really important to me. It could be something like, I want to talk about this trip that we're going on to see your parents. I have some real concerns about it. Do you have 15 minutes right now to talk about it? Like even making so specific a request as to include the time so that they know what they're saying yes to. Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping that helps, Sasha. It's a really important part of, for me, the nonviolence aspect of it. I'm not tackling him. I'm not making him do anything. I'm fully respecting his sovereignty. Yeah. Yeah, let's hear from another person on that could unmute themselves or be unmuted. Other observations? Awkward silence, it's okay. All right, I'll wait till people are ready to talk, and I'm going to read one more here. Is that I was interested in what he was thinking or feeling too. Yeah, I was able to be curious. Curiosity is such a powerful experience. I was able to not just be in my own tension, because I did a little bit of self-empathy. So I wasn't just in my own need to be right or do it my way. I was like, what was important to me? And I was also curious of what was important to him, because I actually care about our connection. So this stuff works quite a bit better when we're invested in the connection with each other. Yeah, for Maria Silva, works well with the communication when two people are reasonable and mature and really interested in resolving the differences. So Maria's a mediator, and my role as a mediator, it's not always easy to coach others to demonstrate these ways. Yeah, it's, there needs to be the level of effort that I'm going to make to preserve, honor, restore connection is in relationship to like how invested am I in the relationship, and also the nature of the relationship. This is my intimate partner. There's a different quality of connection here that if it was a colleague that I was working with, that I definitely have a vested interest in the relationship, but I have a different relationship with that person. So there's different qualities of how like vulnerable, or how much I talk about my emotions, or just how I relate, just in different places. And if it's someone at the grocery store, then I'm going to be slightly different there as well, because that might be a short interaction with someone that I will never have again. But it's my pledge in my life is, what can I do to create more love? And so everything that I attempt to do things that create more love in the world. So I attempt kindness anywhere that I am, not just when it's convenient for me or when I'm invested in the relationship. Yeah, sweet. I'm just scanning through the chats a little bit. They can't unmute themselves. All right, is there any more? Oh, there's a whole bunch of messages here. I'm noticing the chats a little bit. Oh, there we go, I've got it. Yeah, so is there anyone else, Jacob, that has their hand up that would like to share? I do see a couple more, and I'm not finding them in the list.
I think Daria Polanski.
Okay.
We could try.
Yeah.
I'll try to find it.
Yeah. I can unmute Daria. I can't unmute Daria. It's not working. Oh, there we go.
Hi. No, we actually didn't have a question. There was just a thumbs up from before.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks.
There was a sign from Gwyneth Sobejko. I don't know if that was a question or.
Oh, there's an applaud. I'm guessing that's an appreciation.
Just an appreciation. Okay.
Yeah.
And another kind of something for. Oh, there's a hand. Nicholas Arnaud.
Yeah. I don't see a Nicholas.
Oh, here, I'll unmute.
Sure, if you see him, yeah, go for it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, I really like that you both found a middle ground
Mm.
between both needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, which when I was following the conversation, I wasn't thinking about that could be that possibility, but I think it came out as a result of the space that you both had.
Yeah.
And
Thank
yeah,
you.
new ideas come out, right? So
And sometimes with that empathic listening, we can actually go deeper into an understanding of like his really missing his dad. Like I didn't get that in the first conversation, you know.
yes.
And then I got to share a little bit about like my concerns of all the domestic stuff. And I didn't get to say that in the first conversation. And so we got a deeper layer of understanding when there was more listening going on. And the more, I love that, because when we can connect to the needs that are underneath our strategies, go, don't go, when we can connect to what's underneath that a bit more meaningfully, then we can come to strategies that will actually meet both of our needs, which is like my dream place. It doesn't always happen, but that's my dream place, to come to that third way, not just my way or his way, but the third way that actually works for both of us, that we both can live with or actually have joy in. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
Michelle Merson has a question.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I've unmuted.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Just once again. Of course, there's a reason why you chose this partner, right? He did a great job. But let's say you suggest, like, what could we do so that, you know, perhaps we can still go ahead with the plan, but we meet each other, you know, each other halfway. So what would you have done if the partner says, I don't know?
So you're not, so he would just be like, I don't know what to do. Like, you sort of don't get the same kind of engagement.
Like if he had not by himself, you know, mentioned the hotel. I know it's a tough one and you don't have to
Yeah.
this, because, you know, there's a happy ending to this, but
Yeah.
I enjoy the fact that you left a lot of silence, because, you know, sometimes you don't have the answer right away.
Yeah.
But let's say it doesn't get much further than that.
Yeah, I might speak from my own in the moment experience, and said something like, well, I can see that we both connected to some of the stuff that's important to both of us, and I feel a little bewildered at what strategies, you know, what would work for both of us in this moment. And, you know, do you have any ideas, or, you know, can we just get creative about what's possible? Like, I would advocate for what it is I'm wanting, what it is I'm needing, which is a solution. And I could say, I really want to find a way that works for both of us here. And I'd love to bat some ideas around. Do you have any? I might have one. Do you have one? Like, just kind of like invite from a needs-based consciousness. I'm needing collaboration. I'm needing some sort of resolution. Yeah. And it might be, well, you know, we don't have anything in this moment. Let's take the afternoon and do our thing, and then maybe we'll come back to this afternoon or this evening at dinner, and we'll come up with ideas. Like, so we don't have to do it all in the moment too. It's possible to give space. How's that sounding? Cool. All right. So I'm really enjoying the questions, and I would love to give you an opportunity for a deeper experience of self-connection. So if you're willing, and I see there's a, Laura, do you have a hand up? Yeah, go ahead. I can't hear you yet. I see you're unmuted, but I don't hear your voice. Huh, are you, let's see. Yeah, I see you're unmuted. I'm just gonna mute you and unmute you again and see if that makes a difference. Yeah. Can you speak and see if that's working? No. I don't hear your voice. I wonder if you'd be willing to type in the chat. Would they be willing to do that? I'd love to hear what you have to share and finding our easeful way through technology. We'll give Laura a moment. And so while she's typing, I will just share a little bit about, so when we come back to those couple gifts of nonviolent communication that I mentioned at the beginning, which is the opportunity to connect to what's important to me in the moment. So that helps me regulate my emotions. It helps me connect to what's important. And from that place, I'm more likely to express myself in ways that connect, versus if I'm not connected and I'm in a reactionary state, that I'm maybe not going to be as clear or as patient or as willing to hear the other person's perspective. So self-connection, really, really important. I'm still tracking you, Laura. And then the next piece of...
I can read out her question. Did
oh,
you
get... That'd be fantastic.
So it said, just to say if unskilled, I get that you are saying that good to just spell things out as per outlining process, but asking for suggesting process to help empathy or solutions. Not sure if
I'm a little bit unclear on the question.
I'll send it to you.
Sure.
Quickly. Oh, not a question, but more a comment.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let me just expand this a little bit and I can see. Oh, just to say, if unskilled, I get that you're saying it's good to spell things out as per outlining the process that asking for. Okay, suggesting a process. Yeah, there's definitely an interplay between the process, which is the steps in which the skills happen. When I'm doing expression, honest expression, I start with the observation. I could share my feelings and needs and maybe go to a request. So like, and that's more than we can cover in 45 minutes. That's a whole weekend workshop. And so, but certainly the process is important, but sometimes we get caught in the process. And I know sometimes people have the experience of nonviolent communication being kind of robotic, like it's a formula, you've got to speak in a certain way. But just like I say, just like learning a musical instrument, when I learned to play the flute in high school. And so I learned finger positions and notes, and then I learned scales. And then after I practiced that a bit, I could actually play music. And so just like learning nonviolent communication, there is a time at which sometimes it can feel awkward, and doing observation, feeling, need, request can very robotic. But if you go back and watch the recording, I did those pieces when I was expressing to Trevor, but I didn't necessarily do them in the rigid order, or I didn't do it using the scripted language of nonviolent communication, because I've kind of integrated it into my way of being. And so it's more of a consciousness than model. So the model is really important, especially in learning. And sometimes if I get frustrated and I need support, I go back to the model. Okay, when this happened, I felt like it's really helpful. And the more you use it, the more skilled you can be, the more you can kind of naturalize it and make it sound like music. Is that helpful, Laura? Yeah, sweet. I see your nodding head. Wonderful. So I would love, so the second piece, the self-connection is really important. And the second piece of being able to transform judgments, which is getting underneath to the needs underneath. So I'd love to guide you, if you're willing, through a self-empathy connection practice, because this is, for me, it's like the beginning of any of this. It builds my capacity for self-connection. It builds my capacity for language. The more I'm able to do empathy for myself, the easier it's going to be to try to do it for other people. And so I'm just going to bring you through a short guided meditation, and then we'll come back for a couple more questions, and then we'll be at the end of our time together. So, and a little bit like what we've been doing throughout our time together is just checking in about what's happening in our bodies. And what's happening in our bodies and what's happening in our minds, they're very connected. When I have a rigid body, I often have a rigid mind. It's kind of, I've noticed they kind of go together for me. So thinking of a time, either dropping into this present moment and just bringing your awareness here into this moment, Or if you like, you could think of a conversation that created a bit of tension for you recently. Something that happened with someone else that created tension and didn't quite maybe go the way you would have liked. And just allow yourself to either come deeply into this present moment, noticing what's happening in your body, or let your imagination go to this other situation that you're thinking of that you would have liked to have gone differently. And just let yourself reimagine that. Let yourself think through the scenario, what was happening, who said what. And really using the power of imagination, just allow yourself to fully experience either this moment or that moment, and notice what's happening in your body as you do that. Notice what's happening with sensation, particularly in your head, your face, your chest, your neck, your belly. This is that alarm system that I talked about. And notice just any tension or heat or prickliness or expansiveness or openness. So just body sensations is one thing. And then notice whatever emotion words might arise in association with either the present moment or that other moment you're allowing yourself to think about. And they're kind of simple single words that describe your emotional experience. And it could be sort of big energy words like anger and frustration. And it could be more vulnerable words like hurt or anxious. Just noticing what emotion words come up. And if you had a piece of paper and you wanted to write things out, this would also work, but you could also just notice the thoughts that arise for you. Our feelings and our thoughts both point us to what's important to us. And when we can see the judgments or assessments or perceptions in our thoughts, when we can see past those, we can get to the needs that are underneath. And so notice what thoughts are popping into your mind in association either with this moment or the other moment. And just sort of track those thoughts a bit. And pause at one of them. You could journal them if you wanted. I love to journal them one at a time. I write out all the thoughts, all the things I would never say out loud to the other person because those are kind of like the more violent thoughts that I actually don't want to say because it doesn't create connection. But I want to understand what's underneath it. So I give myself permission to explore it. And so take one of those thoughts and get curious about what's underneath it. What's the universal human need that might be underneath that thought? When I did my self-empathy practice, I really connected to needs for choice and care. Just be curious about, and so noticing if your needs kind of look like strategies about someone else doing something or someone doing something, like those are kind of at the strategy level. Even those strategies point to needs that are important. If only someone did this, then my need would be met. But what would the need be met underneath that? If only he agreed not to go, then my need being met would be harmony between us, or my need being met would be to protect. So noticing strategies and thoughts and just being curious about what needs are underneath. Nonviolent communication has these amazing inventories. I'll give you a link to my website and you can go look at the inventories, and it's amazing to build our vocabulary of understanding about feelings and needs. So something you can reference later. And when you kind of like have some chance to pick through some of like what your emotions were, what your body sensations were, pointing to what's important to you, what your thoughts or your strategies were that point to what's important to you underneath. When you can connect to a couple of those needs, really like see if there's one that really stands out for you. Like my need for care was really, really alive for me. It was so precious to me, so important to me. And so noticing the need that's standing out for you, and really allow yourself to have it and to have the beautiful living energy of that need. So without it even being in reference to the scenario you're thinking about, imagine yourself having what is it like when this particular need is like fully met for you? What is that experience like? When my need for care is fully met for me, oh my goodness. If I dropped into that experience, my face smiles. And I love caring for people and caring for myself. It really feels like the highest expression of love is to like offer care. Yeah, that to be a motivation for my actions in the world. Yeah. I have a lightness in my chest when I imagine that. So these needs that we have, we can experience them as unmet, and they can feel like tension or denser emotions. Or in the same moment, we could imagine this really beautiful, precious need for ourselves as met, as fully met, and just letting ourselves have that imagining. And then notice what happens when our imagination goes to that place. And when we connect to the beautiful living energy of these needs, it allows me to connect to the importance and the value of the human experience. And it's those very needs that you and I, when we're in conflict, we might have that very same need. And when I can connect to the beauty of it in myself, I can connect to the beauty of it in you. And I'm more likely to see you as something other than being difficult. I'm likely to see you as someone who's struggling to get a need met, or someone that has a really beautiful need that they're advocating for in this moment. So just letting ourselves have that understanding of what's underneath all of our interactions. So this is part of a self-empathy practice, is noticing what happened, either this moment or the other moment, noticing how it made us feel, and then noticing what thoughts come up and looking underneath the feelings and the thoughts for what's really important to me here. And when I can connect to what's really important to me, then I can maybe find other ways. I can regulate my nervous system. I can be more calm. I can find maybe more connecting ways to express what's happening for me, instead of those feelings that might have been hard to express through frustration, irritation, judgment, those sorts of things. We are coming to the end of our time together. And I would love to hear a couple more voices, just about what's standing out for you. We have a few minutes for that. And then I'd love to share a little bit of some additional resources that, if this has been meaningful for you, there's lots of ways to continue studying this and integrating this into your life.
Do you want to try unmuting everyone and see how that works? Or
let's do that.
Do we try that? Let's just
sure.
Experiment.
Yeah. So it's going to be an experiment, and so start speaking, and then we'll just be mindful of each other. If someone else has started speaking, we'll give them space, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay, here we go. Scratch thing.
And if you're noticing you have a lot of background noise, if you mute yourself, that would be helpful for everyone.
We would be very
It might not work if people have background noise too. Yeah, I'd love to hear if there's any other observations or thoughts or questions in this moment as we approach the end of our time together. In the chat. Thanks, Anne. I really enjoyed the session. I thought the two dialogues really revealed a lot of principles and needs and techniques that can be used with a few tools and perspectives. Thank you. Wonderful. That's lovely to hear.
This was really, really wonderful session. I really enjoyed it.
Can you say something about what you enjoyed?
The whole thing, actually. I was really surprised. I was writing notes like crazy.
Wonderful. So you got some insights and some learnings.
Lots lots that I gotta go through now and read and practice.
And practice, so important. I don't know about you, I just celebrated my 50th birthday last week. I've been communicating for 5 decades. It takes a lot of time to change one of these habits. And so be gentle with yourself as you practice this, because you've likely been communicating for many decades.
Yes.
And it takes time. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Could you
Roxanne?
mention your website again? Because I didn't catch, because I was on another communication seminar for most of the time, and I'm really sorry I missed yours.
No worries.
If I get to your website, maybe I can put something together.
I put a screen share up.
Okay, great.
So you can jot down my email and my website. And I actually have online courses. I've been teaching courses online for the last year. So I'm like totally prepared for this time and age.
Okay.
And so I have 2 courses. One is a fundamentals course. If this is all new to you, it's a wonderful place to start. We do 6 hours over 3 weeks, and we cover the fundamentals. And there's 2 sessions, one in April and one in May coming up. And then once you've got some of the core pieces of nonviolent communication down, I'm running a coaching program, which has been so much fun and so rewarding. Typically they're small groups, and we just bring your real world scenarios and we role play it together, just like Trevor and I did, but it's amazing for integrating nonviolent communication. So those are 2 ways. And then there's some other resources on there too. The CNVC.organization has lists of trainers and lists of courses and things. And then I'm also on the board of the Salish Sea Empathy Society, which runs a nonviolent communication summer camp, which is amazing, although probably won't run this year, unfortunately. And we do other offerings. In fact, we're working on having an empathy lounge. We're trying to figure out how we can offer some space for people to have room to be heard in this time. You know, there's a real big need for people's have to have space to be really heard. Yay.
Empathy, got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been so lovely to be here with you.
I feel the love. So beautiful.
Wonderful.
So nice.
And there's lots of little chats coming through, just appreciations. Really, it's lovely to hear. And belated birthdays, yes. The birthday party on Zoom was really fun, I have to tell you.
Someone wants to know if you offer these kind of workshops for teenagers or young adults.
Oh, teenagers and young adults. I don't specifically offer for teenagers and young adults, but it's not to say I couldn't. I haven't done a lot of work with kids, but I hear kids really, really love NVC because they're less filtered. Younger kids, less filtered. If you send me an email, I likely could put you in touch with people that do a little more work with kids. And it's not to say I wouldn't. It's just, yeah, teenagers scare me. I just have to be honest about that. But I think I actually have a friend on Gabriola Island who has a couple younger teenage boys, and they have such a fascinating relationship with nonviolent communication. There's ways in which they love it and hate it, and it's also a really valuable place to, tools to communicate. Yeah. Any final questions before we all say goodbye?
Very, very nice.
Wonderful. All right, please feel free to follow up if you feel inclined. And thank you so much, Jacob and Banyen, for making this.
Thank you, yeah, for being the first.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Lovely evening.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye-bye.